this meeting of the Durant City Council on October the 10th. If you would, please stand with me for an invocation and flag salute. Let's pray together. Our God, our Father in heaven, we're so thankful, God, for renewal. We're thankful for your love, your grace. We're thankful for your mercy. God, we're thankful that you're here with us, and we pray for your Spirit to help us, to guide us, to strengthen us. God, we pray for the best for the city of Durant, for its citizens. Pray for the staff that work so hard to carry out all the programs and the work that needs to be done for the betterment of our citizens. We pray, God, your blessing on each family that's represented here and on the city of Durant, and pray that everything that's done tonight will bring glory and honor to your name. All these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. If you would join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Will the clerk now call the roll?
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Shear.
Here.
Councilmember Fuller.
Here.
Vice Mayor Simulescu is absent. Mayor Tucker.
Here. At this time, I would invite the council down in front to present Employee Service Awards for the third quarter, please. Tonight we're going to celebrate a combined 45 years of service to the city of Durant. First is Frank and Nia from the water treatment plant. Frank, I probably messed up your last name.
No, you said it right.
Come on down. Frank, tonight is, this is an award of commitment presented to Frank today for 5 years of service to the city of Durant. He receives a certificate, a nice pin to wear when he dresses up, and a check for $50. You got family here, Frank? You want to come down and have a picture made with him?
Yeah.
Point him out, Tony. Come on down.
Tyler.
Next is Anthony Smallwood. Is Anthony here? Come on back, Tony. Tony, also 5 years at the water treatment plant. And we get a very similar certificate in recognition of your 5 years of service. And this pen, and also the check. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Betty Wilhite. Betty's in the finance department, 5 years of service, and also a certificate in recognition of your service to the city, and a check and a pen. And come on, Andy. Come on. Now we're going to skip over the 10 years, but we have some 15-year awards tonight. Brandon Carball. He's here. Brandon, 15 years on our police force. We're very proud of Brandon and his service to the city. Nathan Hart, also 15 years in service to our fire department. We're very proud of Nathan. I used to work with his mom, so great family, great people, and we're very proud of them. Thank them for their service. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments. We have 4 or 5, I'm honestly having trouble deciphering some of the handwriting here. 4 or 5 individuals. The rules that I will share with you on citizen comments. Citizens are given 3 minutes to say what they need to say or want to say before the city council. Since there's not an item to take action or to respond even to citizen comments, there will not be any response or action taken, but the citizen is allowed the time to express themselves before the city council. So, number 1 on the list tonight is Marydale Pound, maybe. I can't read, or Powell, maybe. Powell? Marydale, the podium, and please come up to the microphone where maybe someone's watching from home and they want to hear what you're saying. And when your 3 minutes is up, our lovely timekeeper will inform you of the expiration of your time.
I'm here about a loan that the city put on my property at 1330 Denison Street. And I was out of town. I wasn't even in town. I'd been out about 3 or 4 months. I lost my son in death, and I had gone to my niece's to stay a while. And when I come home, I had a statement that I owed $845 for a tree trimming. So I went to try to find something out about tree trimming in the city. Nobody seemed to know about it. They kept just passing the buck. And so finally I heard that the city had hired this tree trimming company to trim trees. And and they claim they sent me a notice and everything. Well, I don't know if they sent me a notice. I wasn't home. I was gone. And it was a time that I really couldn't have cared less about tree trimming. It was a time of a great time, terrible time for me. And I didn't appreciate them coming on my property, illegal. I had about 3 days later, after I got the statement from them, OG&E come out, and they trimmed trees for 2 different days. So if they even trimmed trees, I guess they didn't do a very good job, because they spent OG&E spent 2 days. And I don't have the money to pay this, and I don't feel like I even should, because I didn't have any notice. They didn't get in touch with me, and it was illegal for them to come on and do that. And I just don't appreciate it.
Okay, Marydale, thank you for those comments. I think the number 2 person on my list is also
This is an insurance from OG&E.
Marydale. Well, we'll be happy to take whatever you want to share with us. That'll be fine.
That's my insurance.
Okay. Okay. So, since I can't read that, number 3 looks like Mike someone on stormwater. And I'm sorry I can't read your handwriting.
Sorry.
The-
That's me.
Oh, Merle. I'm sorry, Merle.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna wait.
Come up to the microphone, Merle, so everyone at home can hear you.
Well, I think I'm gonna wait and speak and repeat.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that's on an actual agenda item, and
Okay,
the public
well-
comments are only for non-agenda items.
Okay, gotcha. And so, Dr. Whittington's the same for you? Okay, Brady Baskin, is that also the same for you?
Yes, sir.
Brady? Okay, so that's the end of the citizen comment time period then. Thank you for that. Now, order of regular business. Next is the consent items. Under consent items, there are 5 sets of minutes and budget supplements, and an approval of an agreement between the city and Big 5 Community Services. And these all can be approved in one motion, or more can be taken out for individual consideration if necessary. What's the council's pleasure?
I'll make the motion to approve all consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve all consent items. The clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. There's no action for item 2 since nothing was removed from consent. Item number 3 is information items, and this will be the August financial statements and September sales tax reports from Ms. Ann Chin. Please.
Good evening. I think everybody have the financial statement spreadsheet. The first one is the general fund. This is for the August, so we're supposed to complete it 16.67%. And then for our revenue that not including the transfer is about 18.75%. So which means we are 2% higher than our the month. And the expenses that only for the department expenditure is 14%, is about 2% lower than our budget this month, year-to-date month. And then we have some transfers. One of the transfer is the insurance cash fund. We transfer 100% from the beginning of the year. So adding all together is about the right percentage for our expenditure. This is for the general fund. And then for the capital improvement, that is, you will see the negative number. One of the reason is we have the financing, and we have equipment financing, and we haven't got it yet. We borrowed one of the fire truck that we do the financing is about 625,000. And another two is for the DCUA. They bought 2 trucks, and we haven't done the financing yet. So for the DCUA, this authority, that you can see that we have the about 20% of our revenue, and one of the reasons is we from the 2020 airport tank principal payment, that is an interfund loan, and then we did the payment in repayment for one time at the beginning of the year. So you will see that 20% of the revenue compared to the budget, and for the department expense, it's about 13%, so it's lower than our budget. And if we including all this transfer, it's about 15%. So right now we're still in pretty good control of our expense. And next is our sales tax. This time I kind of like separate two. One is, the first one is I highlight red, is 1% capital improvement. That capital improvement sales tax revenue is for debt service and the capital improvement, actual capital improvement. And the second one is 2% general fund. That is for the general operation. And the rest of the 1/4 cent, 1/4 cent, 1/4 cent, and 5/8. All those is really nothing to do with our city. That is the money that we just assign to different entity to use. And then all this, the black part is about 1/3 of the revenue that we get it from the sales tax. So another thing I want to point out is, for example, our 2% general operating, that is for spending in our general fund. And our general fund is about 20 million per year, so which means the 1 month is about 1.7 million for the expenses. And then you can see that we received the 852,000. It's a little bit less than 50%. And all the other general fund, the expense, we had to get the money from the other authority to subsidize this. So this is the one that I like to point out. Yeah, okay. Another one, the last one. It's our 10 years average. We are really fortunate that each month our sales tax revenue doing, I can say that pretty well, that compared to the last year, we got 4.8 increase. And the year to date is about, compared to the same period of the prior year, it's about 4% increase. So of course it's not, we didn't count it all those inflation, but at least we are steadily increase.
Going in the right direction, right? Very good.
Any other question?
Any questions for Ann on the financials and the sales tax revenue? Good report, thank you, Ann. Next, we'll move into administrative items. Number 4A will be to consider approval of a contract with Retail Strategies for $40,000 for retail recruitment services.
Mayor, this is a company the city of Durant's been using for approximately 2 years. I've been in contact with them by phone quite a bit in the last month. They would have loved to have been here tonight, but they're at a Chicago retailer show, and they actually got 3 appointments to meet with possible retail locating in Durant.
Good.
Some of the business they brought in so far is H2O, Starbucks, and then the strip center just to the west of H2O. I think there's a T-Mobile and another business going in there. So they have showed some success, and they're in negotiations now with a big retailer to come to Durant that I can't say who it is at this point, but I recommend approval of another year with Retail Strategies.
Okay. Any questions from council on Retail Strategies and the contract?
And this is budgeted for this fiscal year.
I make a motion that we approve contract Retail Strategies in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4B is considering approval of equipment financing with American National Bank for a fire engine truck.
Okay, this truck is we budget for the 2022-2023, and then we order it, and then we wait for about, I think, more than 18 months, and then we finally got it. And the original plan is we're gonna do financing it. So I just sent out the request to the local finance entity, and then I got 5 back, and then the best rate is American Nation Bank, 3.75%. So please award this financing to American Nation Bank.
And that's for 84 months, if I recall.
Yes.
Is that right? 3.75%?
That is what I heard is the maximum, because this is the truck, so they are not financing longer than this.
That.
Yeah. Mhm.
Gotcha. Any questions for Ann on the financing package for this fire engine truck? I move that we approve the financing with American Nation Bank for the Spartan fire engine truck.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4C is consider approval of the Oklahoma Purchasing System Interlocal Cooperation Agreement between ISD 15 of Atoka County and member public agencies.
Council, the TOPS program, the Oklahoma Purchasing System, is a fairly new program that is like a statewide contract, but they are solely focused on sport and recreational merchandise. So right now they have 30 plus companies that do anywhere from surfacing for courts or turf, lighting or field lighting, playgrounds, splash pads. They design and construct new parks. It's a no obligation, no fee kind of contract. We're just, I have a current bid to redo our track, and they are the cheapest round, but getting on this system will help move that along.
Questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion to approve 4C.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item 4D is consideration, discussion, and possible approval for Play and Park Structures Oklahoma Contract SWCO 111 for new playground structure at the Dixon Durant Park.
So, in your packet, I included the 2D rendition and all the 3D renditions that they have in this proposal. It is designed to look, the poured in place fall protection will be designed to look like a rocket. There will be 2 structures on this deal that will be a total capacity of 140 to 145 kids. It's roughly 100 foot by 50 foot, which is 347 square feet. The max height will be 12 foot, and this will hopefully replace the Rocket, and that's at Rocket Park. With this bid, they're not only it'll cost for the actual structure, but it's the installation, the concrete that goes around the pour in place, and the installation of the pour in place fall protection. They have a maintenance plan that they will help staff, and pretty much anything else that is needed. They do everything. The lead time for this project, just once we have the agreement signed, 8 to 12 weeks before the equipment will come in, and that's mainly because of 8 to 12 weeks from now is holiday season, so who knows when it actually gets here, but it'll be in that time. And then installation, they estimate around 10 weeks. The last time this company was when they installed the playground at Keithley Park. Their installation time was 3 weeks, and they got it done in a week. So they know what they're doing. So if it's a lead time of 10 weeks, I would probably assume that it would be quicker than that. But getting this, it'll be handicap accessible. There will be ramps leading from a pad that will have a pavilion on it, and it will have a sidewalk that connects it to the other side of the sidewalk. Everything will be handicap accessible and meet ADA standards.
What are you gonna do with the old Rocket?
I'm planning on sealing it up. It'll still be there, but we will seal it up and paint it because I know people in this town will not be very nice to me if I take that thing down, but we can't keep it up. We can't keep it playable. So we're gonna seal it up, make it look like, keep it as a rocket, but we'll make it where kids can't climb on it unless they try really, really hard. And we'll just paint it and make it look nice.
Other comments or questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve 4D.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4E is going to be Becca, I believe. Consideration acceptance of EMPG grant award of $40,000 from the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management. If it's not, it's Richard. All right, Richard.
Good evening, Council. We have been awarded the 2023 EMPG grant again this year for $40,000. This will offset salaries for the EM staff. It's something we do every year, and we've got it for years in the past. Just requirements, we have to do certain requirements that they have us do, and then we have to do a quarterly report.
There's no match, right?
It's actually an $80,000 grant, and it's a 50-50
gotcha.
match.
But it offsets.
Right.
We're going to pay.
Right.
We're going to pay staff anyway, so that counts.
Yes.
As the offset. Gotcha. Okay. Any questions on this grant from Emergency Management from Oklahoma? I move that we approve and accept this grant award of $40,000 from the Emergency Management Department of Oklahoma.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. 4F is consider acceptance of a Homeland Security grant of $8,500.
And I should have mentioned also in the memo, I'd put that we hadn't received the award letters, and I've received both award letters
now.
on the 2nd.
Good.
So on this grant, it's for $8,500, and it's to pay for the Starlink internet service for the equipment and 2 years of mobile priority service on our RTD number 2 trailer. It's a communications trailer that Durant was awarded a grant for back in 2014, I believe. There's only 3 of these trailers in the state of Oklahoma. They did have big satellite internet on them, cellular internet, and then radio capabilities, 8 different radios on it. And the satellite hasn't worked, and I've been working with the Homeland Security to try to get Starlink on these, and they finally decided to do that for all 3 trailers, and so that's what this grant is for, is to pay for the equipment and 2 years of service.
Very good. Those trailers are valuable as far as interconnectivity between agencies, because not everyone's radio is on the same band or frequency or whatever, and these hook those together. So anyone can connect to this trailer and talk to everyone through that device.
We had it up in Oklahoma City this last week at operational readiness exercise and did that. So.
It's pretty valuable, especially in a bad situation, which is what it's designed to assist in. Any questions from Richard on this grant?
I don't have a question on this grant, but I do have a question. I bet Richard can guess what it is.
Radar?
The radar. Situation report, please.
So I'm trying to think of the date. I believe it was the 28th of September. I received an email from Barron Weather Radar, or Barron Weather, and they advised the software stuff that they needed to do, the GUI stuff, was complete, and they would be having their guys install it the following week. Well, that was last week, and I was in Oklahoma City. I'd never heard from anybody on it, and so far as I know, it's done. Now, on the hardware side for the city, I'm still waiting on IT to install the hardware.
Has the hardware been purchased?
Yes, it has been purchased, and from what I've been told, it is here and has been programmed, configured, whatever you want to call it, as much as they could here, and it just needs to be installed.
Okay. So maybe sometime in the next.
Before next tornado season.
Okay.
How about that?
Well, that's January 1st through December 31st in Oklahoma.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we approve and accept the grant from Homeland Security for $8,500.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item 4G is discussion, consideration, and possible action on accepting a proposal for renewal of excess insurance from Arch Insurance Company. Who's gonna, here we go.
Hi.
Brandy.
This excess insurance policy through Arch will kick in when a workers' comp claim exceeds the $750,000 threshold up to an additional $1 million. And it covers the lifetime of the claim.
Questions on the excess insurance for workman's comp? Is this the same company we've used before?
Yes, we've been with them since 2021.
Have we had to use this insurance yet, Brandy?
We do currently have a claim that's over $1 million.
Okay.
This is the same coverage as previous years.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of Brandy? I move that we approve this proposal from Arch Insurance for excess insurance coverage.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item 4H, while we're talking about insurance, will be a consideration of approval for group life, accidental death and disability, dependent life with Symetra, employee health and dental benefits with Blue Cross and vision benefit with VSP.
Yes, I brought in Kelly with Insurica to
Okay.
answer any questions
Excellent.
you may have.
Do you all have I have some to pass out if you'd like it. Would that be helpful?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So on the first page, we actually have the Blue Cross. I'm actually not Dustin, by the way. I'm actually Kelly, so I don't know if that needs to be changed on the agenda. He got caught in traffic coming home from Phoenix, so I actually was happy to come for you guys. So the group health policy with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, we actually, they proposed a 2% increase. We actually negotiated that down. We went through some of the claims that we had, negotiated with them. We actually got a pass. So good news, we did not have an increase on medical. So we saved a little bit of money getting them down from that 2%. The dental policy is actually also through Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and we had a pass on that as well. So good news on both fronts there with Blue Cross. Vision policy, we did have a slight increase. We have not had an increase with them for several years. It's very slight, $253 for the year. So they've done a good job with VSP, and I don't think the city has any issues with VSP. We actually have a good relationship with them. Minimal increase with them of $253. That will be an increase. We did have on Blue Cross and Blue Shield on the group life and AD&D, they actually gave us an increase last year and this year. The biggest issue is we're having a lot of billing issues with them. And just overall some service issues. So we did go out, we shopped, we actually shopped the whole market. Symetra came in, they do really good with municipalities. They actually came in with a savings for you guys of $2,238 to save you guys some money. So they are a very good company. We actually use them with other municipalities as well, and we've had some really good luck with them. So that would be the only option to change and also take over the dependent life as well. To go to Symetra is what we recommend.
Any questions for Kelly? Thank you for that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Comments or questions on the coverage? I move that we approve these insurance renewals with Blue Cross and also with the new coverage, the AD&D with Symetra. Item 4H.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4I is to discuss and consider city-owned property at 301 North 16th here in Durant and take possible action.
Mayor, and council, this is the old senior citizen building that we declared surplus approximately 3 months ago. Appraisal came in on the property at $331,000. However, looking at the appraisal, they included the walk-in cooler. That was not the property of the city of Durant, but the occupant of the building, so it has been removed. So that will knock the 331 down slightly, but not a whole lot. What I'm needing from the council is direction on how to sell this property. I've looked at two options. One's going out for RFP with a realtor, or we try to sell it ourselves in-house, which I would recommend, and have the council set a minimum bid, and we put it on the market and take bids for 30 days. And open bids and and bring the bids back we received to the council at that time. But I would highly recommend set a minimal bid that the city would accept.
I don't know what a walk-in freezer is worth, but what would a minimum bid be on a 331 minus the freezer value?
I'm not sure what the freezer would be worth, but I'd say you're looking at probably about 325,000.
325 as a minimum bid, and just open bids for a month and see if someone wants to submit a bid to the city to purchase this property. Any questions on that thought process? Submit to the office of the city manager.
Or the city clerk.
City clerk. Be better, wouldn't it, Cindy?
Yep.
I'd say it depends on the condition of that cooler and to how much it added, because those can be rather expensive. Sure, Danny can attest to that.
It's been there.
325 seem reasonable.
325 does.
Worth a try. It's already been 3 months.
So,
Another month isn't gonna, I don't think, change things a whole lot. How will we advertise it?
internet, and there's some local we can hand out to.
Okay.
Locals that, and actually we've already had some people showing interest in it.
Good.
So
So sealed bid, open in 30 days, and we'll get the opening date and the submission date on the advertisement.
yes,
And instructions on how, expectations for payment and all those things, right?
right.
Okay. Any comments or questions on that thought process to sell this excess property? And I move we approve the interim manager's plan to advertise the property on 301 North 16th for $325,000 in a sealed bid to be opened in 30 days per instructions to be published.
Second. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Speaking of surplus property, item number 4J is consider disposal of surplus property of the Public Safety Department.
Evening, gentlemen, ma'am. So what you have in front of you, I gave you a specific handout. It was my fault. The PDF in the pre-handbook was my fault. Little technology problems. This is the spreadsheet that you should have received, and it's my fault again. What we're looking at is equipment from the police and the emergency management that we want to either take to auction, as you see there in the next last, in the middle there, intended disposition, or trade it per the city ordinance. Also included in your packet is the city ordinance that I referenced. We do, when I say we, the police department does business with several different vendors that have expressed interest in giving us bids on this equipment to trade. And that way the money stays in the police department for new weapons and new equipment as necessary. And where you see that not on asset report, again, we're doing our best to correct inaction at the time of acquisition, to fix that and actually just get rid of them. You see that some of those things have been here quite a while, right, if you're looking at FEMA trailers. My only question is, what's this stuff worth about? So, sir, that'll be determined ultimately by the free market, what we get bids on. And the auction site, the plan initially will be go into Renee Bates, use them as an auction house and see what comes back. Regardless of the process with the auction company, those bids come back for you all to approve. It's not just a one and done. Those bids are still approved by you all. I'm familiar with that company, and their process is pretty good. Questions or comments? I'll make it smaller next time if everybody can read what we're... We are still working on weapons, whole weapons and vehicles, but we are going to go after this pretty heavily to clear out some space. Very good. Questions or comments for Brian on this? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve item 4J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item
Thank you,
4K
gentlemen.
is consideration for approval of small business grants, and I think there are more than one.
Yes, we do have three. We have three businesses that I think we're in the process of submitting an application for the small business grant about the end of the fiscal year. The funding ran out at the end of the fiscal year. We did have a change in personnel, and I've taken some time to get familiar with the program. They did complete the training, and we think the applications are eligible. Main Street Chiropractic, La Gruta, and Wright's Drive-In. The Industrial Authority last week approved these applications, and we submit these to you for your ratification. Any questions?
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul on these grant applications that have been submitted?
I make the motion that we approve the grants.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4L is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a sketch plat request for Goad Construction for property near 49th Avenue and Del Goad Boulevard.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Hightower.
The applicant came to us requesting a sketch plat for some property out on 49th Street, approximately 9.0 acres. It's currently industrial use property. It has a mix of residential and commercial in their zones. It does line up with our future land use map, and Planning Commission recommended approval of the sketch plat.
Any questions for Mr. Hightower?
Mr. Goat.
I see Mr. Goad
Goat's
is here as well. Any questions for Mr. Goad? Mr. Goad, would you like to share some comments with the council?
Correct the recommendation that was in there.
Yes, it's recommended to approve.
Thank you, sir.
At the planning and zoning, they mentioned that the plat was hard to read in the digital copy, so I've given you a little bigger copy to look at there. The first is the plat. The second laminated sheet that you have is to give you a little background history. About 15, 16 years ago, my father and I donated an acre of land out there in this site to the city for future fire substation use. And along with that, a 50-foot strip of land for a road to access that fire department. Then it was determined by prior city council that they were not going to do that. Danny, I guess you were still involved at that point. They were not going to use the property for fire station, so they kindly donated the property back. Tom, I believe, prepared the deed, and you've got a copy of that there, so it'll have a date on it. My thought process was that when we did that with the city was agreeable to accepting the 50-foot roadway to access this property. We're accessing the same adjoining property, and our sketch plat calls for a 50-foot roadway going in off of 49th. 49th Street is a section line road, so by state statute, it's 66-foot right-of-way, not paved certainly, but the road going to this property is 66-foot wide. At the planning and zoning, one of the members pointed out they thought it should be an 80-foot right-of-way to access this property off of 49th. My request to you would be to override that. If it was 50 foot was good enough for a fire department to go there, I'm thinking it's sufficient for anything that we're going to do in the future. The third thing that I've given you that's not laminated that just came in this afternoon is an email from the fire marshal, and we had discussed a lot of the things that came up in the meeting. He was kind enough to go out on site with us, and I've visited with him a couple of times in person since then. And he is in agreement, as you can read through there, with the phases as we have it. And also emergency access, he's comfortable with coming in across property to the south that comes off of Highway 70. So just trying to address the concerns that planning and zoning had, but we need to confirm those details before we can have the next stage, the preliminary, and have the surveyors on site putting pins in the ground. We want to do it right the first time.
There was a comment, Dale, later on in the board packet. It was actually on page 288 of the 422-page packet that has some mention of the possibility or the appearance of orphaning property based on what you submitted. And I don't see that in this case. Is that still? So that was a stray comment?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out and make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, we looked at it, and it will not orphan any property.
Okay. And there are no 80-foot wide streets outside of Highway 70 that I'm aware of in the vicinity of this proposed development. Is that correct?
I don't know how wide Highway 70 is, but regardless, you've got to be on 49th
Right,
to
to
turn
there.
in.
Right.
And if it only requires 66 foot, then my thought would be that 50 foot that was sufficient prior ought to be sufficient now. But if not, 66 foot would certainly be more reasonable than 80 for our intended uses. But we're, at the mercy of the council.
Mr. Goad, what is the expected completion for all three phases?
It's hard to say. The first phase is going to be very quick. We already have the blacktop in that everyone has looked at and approved. We already have a sewer tap in place, so the only thing we'll have to do is run a sewer line and run a water line. It appeared in the last comment that I read from the fire marshal there may already be a fire hydrant out there within 300 feet. If not, we understand we have to install one. So that part will go fairly quickly. And then it's just how quick somebody wants to buy the property.
Now, you've got this listed as industrial use, but you've got it split into lots, kind of presumably that people will build warehousing on it?
Yes, ma'am. That's the intent. As it is now, we have 9 acres out there. If I build multiple buildings, and we thought about doing that, there's no exit strategy. So rather than try to sell 9 acres with 25 buildings on it to one person, we can either sell a lot, let them build their own building, or we can build a building and sell that individually. Just an orderly development is what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Comments or questions for Mr. Goad? Comments on the road easement width that he's requesting? It's not actually part of the motion, but I think it needs to be addressed. I agree with Mr. Goad.
You did say it'd be fine for a 66-foot easement.
I would prefer that to an 80-foot, yes, sir. And that would be the same as, I mean, you've got a primary road going to it 49th, and I consider this secondary road, but, you know, I'm agreeable to 66 if that's agreeable to the council. I'd also be agreeable with 50 if that was agreeable with the council.
Gotcha.
For no more businesses or properties or buildings that are going to be on that street, it seems to me like 50 feet would be more than adequate. That doesn't appear to be a road that's going to carry a lot of traffic.
Well, the street itself, we've got some definition of the widths in there from the fire marshal's comments. So inside a curb to inside a curb, 26 foot. Once we get to the cul-de-sac, we will have to redraw this in the preliminary plat because this is not large enough. He needs 96 foot to be able to turn a fire truck around. So we'll expand that in the preliminary plat and in the application of it. So, you know, that'll be quite a bit wider when we get to the cul-de-sac itself rather than a 50-foot radius.
I know 50-foot sounds fine to us. I'm thinking if you're using this for warehousing, you might have large trucks that need to get in and out of there, and that's on you and being able to sell that property, having a road wide enough. And
Right.
so,
Well,
are we okay with it? Sure. You're going to be able to sell the property if you can't get two large trucks to pass each other on that road for warehouses. That's your discretion.
Okay, thank you. I'm comfortable with that. We've, you know, they've got to get up 49th first, so
Yep.
if they can do that, they can sure do this.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Goode? So just for clarity, this plat doesn't reflect a 96-foot diameter in the cul-de-sac.
It does not.
But that is the plan going forward.
That will be done, yes, sir. For the preliminary plat, and for the next stage will be the survey crew going out and staking, and we'll have it done appropriately.
Right.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll remind the council, a sketch plat is not really a necessary step. It's probably a wise step for a developer, but it's not a necessary step. It's just a, you know, sort of a, hey, what do you guys think about this? And then it would still be required to go through the preliminary or the final plating process and comply with existing requirements.
Right. It was useful because it brought these things up that we hadn't considered. Sure.
And I think 50 foot would probably be good because your average trucks play 8.5, 9 foot wide tops. So I mean, I think 50 foot would work.
Well, I'm comfortable with it from, you know, selling the property, but, you know, want to be sure that you guys will approve it when it comes back as a preliminary and a final.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I move that we approve this sketch plat for Goode Construction with the 50-foot street width and assuming the 96-foot cul-de-sac for PC 2023-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Item number 4M is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a revised planned unit development request for Cope Equities near Gerlach and Carl Albert Drive. Mr. Hightower.
Yes, sir. This came before the Planning Commission, and they want to revise their PUD. There's 22 acres. Let's see. It is zone mixed residential, agricultural, industrial zone. It was passed by the Planning Commission, and staff recommends approval. And they are here if you have any questions from them.
Any comments that the council needs to be made aware of? No? Pretty straightforward? Mr. Jackson rises to the occasion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make a comment that although the commission did recommend approval, we did not recommend approving the more dense parking. So they're increasing density for living, but we ask that they maintain what ordinance requires for parking.
So how far apart are we on the parking density?
I'll let them speak to that.
Okay.
The ordinance requires 2.5 per unit.
Per unit?
James Cruiser with Cope Equities. This revised PUD is simply to change the townhomes to be a fee simple product instead of lumped in together with the apartments as one big mass site plan. So the increased density that we're asking for is just on the townhome portion, which has the fully parked 22-foot wide garages, so two cars parked inside and 2 cars parked in the driveway lengths of 20 foot. I think it's more than reasonable what we're proposing here, and probably more than what most driveways have in the area. But as far as speaking to the density parking that is on the apartments, it's at a ratio of, for a 2-bedroom efficiency unit at 1.75, and then it scales up for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom type unit at half a stall more per unit. And so that's why the ratio was put on the PUD. I can't say exactly what the delta is based on those comments, but I think we're talking less than half of a stall, which in my experience in most of our apartments, always on that alleyway of apartments, there's stalls that are never used. And so that's why we're asking it. In our experience, we just don't see that the stalls are being used. And we'd like to provide that more as an open space, green space, park type thing. But I should have come more prepared to talk about what that difference is, but I think it's less than 0.5 per unit.
So the property that you have now that's existing, that's adjacent to this property, what's the density in comparison to this?
The existing, I've driven it, I haven't counted theirs, but it's a much smaller, tighter community. The driveways are smaller. It's just a much more compact site than what we're proposing here, and I don't see them apples to apples.
Okay, gotcha.
I think the issue that we've had in the past is we haven't had enough parking, and that road Gerlach is so high traffic that there's not room for overflow any way you cut it, and we don't want to have any doubt in our mind that that's going to be an issue because there's just not the room on that road to justify that.
And to that point, there was a traffic report that was performed on this project that we dedicated a portion of the frontage of our property to allow for the widening of Gerlach once the city is ready to do so that there's space to alleviate the traffic.
I know another issue that's maybe unique to us is we are a college town, and sometimes you have 2 and 3 bedroom apartments occupied by 3 and 4 residents.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are going to have any stipulations as far as amount of residents or college students or anything like that, but that is what we run into in this town is you've got 4 kids living in a unit and they all have their own car, and that's where our parking issue comes in.
In most of our communities that we've put together, there's a stipulation on how many people are non-family related in a unit, and we've not built in a college town, but we'd be happy to put some kind of a condition on there if parking didn't meet. We also don't build more than 8% of 3-bedroom units because they just don't get rented.
Right, but that's kind of why we're a stickler on parking.
I hear you,
yeah,
for sure. And I'm not trying to push against, it's just the basis in why the ratio that we proposed in the original PUD was put forth.
But do you guys have a room if that was a requirement that you could up the parking?
I don't recall what the parking was on that, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a huge sticking point for us that if it, came to that point as we get into preliminary plat and we wanted to have further discussion on that, if that's even allowable at this juncture.
Right.
Again, I don't think it's, if we're talking 3-bedroom units and it's a half unit per 3-bedroom that we need to provide, we're talking about a delta of 10 to 12 spaces overall in general. And I don't think it's a lot to really hold off. And so if that's the council's sticking point, we're amenable.
Yeah. The townhomes aren't the issue, it's the apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add, like James was mentioning, that the 3 bedrooms are a low unit mix compared to the 2s and 1s. And in our experience, there's, yes, maybe some people who are trying to pack in, and there's also some people that are trying to spread their elbows. And, there's a lot of folks that we see rent a 2-bedroom because they want to use one as an office or something like that. So in our experience, it does tend to average itself out over the space of a project.
I think we're a unique community.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for your comments. Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
I would make a motion to approve it contingent on increasing the park to the required amount of our suggested by the planning and development.
And to be clear, was that 2.5 spaces per
unit? Yep.
In the ordinance? Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Item number 4N, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance 2023-18, rezone request from general ag to general residential for a property near Wilson and Montgomery Drive.
Yes, sir. This is the Baptist Convention Center there at Southeastern State University. They're wanting to build a new one. They would like to rezone this to R3.
And in addition to their rezoning request, is it an emergency clause to attach to that request? And then in addition to that is a conditional use permit request. Can we have all that conversation at once?
Yes, I think.
Yes, we can.
And it's that's just a replat, or did we already do the replat? And now this is the conditional use permit on the replat.
This is the rezone and the conditional use permit.
Okay. After we had to do the replat first, right?
Yes.
We did that last month.
Last month.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. And the reason for the conditional use permit is because it is a religious center.
Right.
And it has to be on conditional use permit.
Right.
The rezoning, it passed commission. Everybody recommend for approval of it on the CUP and the rezone.
Okay, because it's not really agricultural property anymore.
Right. Hadn't been for quite a while.
Okay, and the conditional use is they're going to rebuild a religious facility to replace
a religious
an old religious facility which they tore down.
Right.
So nothing really changing except for it's going to be brand new.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments from the council? We'll have to address these items individually. I make a motion that we approve item number N1, which is the ordinance to rezone this property from agriculture to residential. This will be subsection 1, the ordinance 23-18, section 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. I make a motion we approve item number N2, ordinance 2023-18, to include the emergency clause on this action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Do I hear a motion on the other item? Do we need to cover that anymore? Item number 40.
I make a motion to approve 4O.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 4P, discussion and consideration and possible action on a final plat request for Mid-Continental Real Estate for property near Wilson and Larkspur.
Yes, sir, this applicant came to us with wanting to do a final plat. This property's total 20 acres. It's made up of mostly single-family residential properties across. Staff signed off supporting the approval of this plat. It does line up with future land use. There has been streets put in, fire hydrants, the water is hooked up, sewer is hooked up on one side of it. It hasn't been hooked up on the other yet, but that we're waiting on he is waiting on the city to do that. And I did receive stormwater permit, and he did turn in the SWP3, so it passed at the planning commission. Nope.
No.
Planning Commission recommended.
No, it did
denial.
not.
No, it did not. It recommended denial of the final plat.
So there is a comment for sidewalks and streetlights, but before we get to that, there's a comment for fire hydrants equipped with a 4-inch stores. What is a 4-inch stores?
4-inch stores is to hook up where you hook your nozzles up, your hoses up to.
So just a 4-inch connection. Has that been?
Yes,
so that's completed as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a matter of sidewalks and streetlights?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I believe the applicant would like to speak on that.
Well, and there's some other individuals here that
Yeah.
wanted to speak on that, I suppose, at some point. I don't know what order we need to go in.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just remind the council that the council did approve in July an extension to the preliminary plat contingent upon compliance with the existing ordinances, which include sidewalks and street lamps. So just as a reminder.
Thank you for that reminder. We appreciate that. Thank you. Dr. Whittington, would you prefer to go first, or should the stormwater people go first?
I think I'll go first.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. It's a long time to be up here. Okay, so originally we started this back in basically 2021. Moved forward through it, kind of stalled out because of university. I had a meeting in October of 2022 because we couldn't get taps, we couldn't get sewer, we couldn't get really anything because of university. We couldn't cut the road there in Wilson, so it kind of got just stopped. I made at that time, we had made application for water taps. I've got a copy of them. And we made application for water taps and sewer taps so we could have it done on 10/27 of 22. It was approved and given to me 7/19 of 23. Miss Odell, she was here and she said we'd never done that and didn't know why we hadn't, and this is her email. Okay, so it was done. We were not allowed to tap or even pay for the taps or even get a price, so we were kind of stalled. So when this entire project was engineered, it was engineered without sidewalks. So the utility easements are right where the sidewalks would be. The grades are not set to be for sidewalks. It's already been graded. Roads are in, stormwater's in, everything's sitting there. It just needs to be completed. The easements would have to be moved. OG&E spent $300,000 getting everything ready. I don't know what they would do. Have to move them somewhere else. Natural gas, fiber, everything's there, or about to be there. But they've done all their engineering because we went off the original approved plat by the city. The city engineer approved it. Okay. Coming in at the last hour and adding this to it, it would significantly disrupt it, and it would probably put it off months and months and months. I have no idea. I don't have a problem with street lights because it doesn't require any engineering. We need to put them in, that's fine. So I'm asking for the plat to be approved with the exception of sidewalks, because they were not originally in the engineering or anything like that. And add them at this point would make it very difficult, okay? The other thing, drainage. Can you put up I want to address some of the drainage issue. Which folder? Folder would be drainage basins. Okay. If you'll see that picture right there, this is the engineer plans. These are the drainage basins. If you look to the left of that screen, there's a big area. It's 48 acres. That drainage drains to the very top of the page, hits the bar ditch, comes onto me. It's 48 acres. It's 60% of the water that comes across that road. It has nothing to do with my land. It's nothing, okay? The remainder of it will come onto my land and come across. So 60% of the drainage that comes across that road is not even mine, per se. But I'm catching the brunt of that. This was engineered so when it's completed, the water drains off at half the rate it did before we started this. And that area is flooded forever. So it actually decreases the water flow off this land by 50% than prior to construction. But it has to be completed. Grass has got to be and all that. And this was signed off by the city engineers when we first did this. So it was approved. It was approved. I talked to Merle, and I got no problem fixing their yards where the sediment is there. I'll have my guys do it. Mr. Livingston, clean his pond out. We got excavators. It'll take a few days to make it, back to fine. There's a 30-inch pipe underneath the road there that has been blocked for years. The water comes across this. I've got a video in there if you want to watch it prior to this even project taking place in June of 2001 that was taken by the engineers that did this, showing the water rushing across the road, flooding the whole place. This is not a new problem, okay? If you want to see pictures of the completed project, the roads, I poured more roads in Durant than Durant did, and they're smooth. So, okay. Any questions?
Comments or questions for Dr. Whittington? Appreciate you coming up here tonight.
What was the date that the council passed the sidewalk ordinance?
After his plat was already done.
The July 11th date was when the extension was done, if that's what you're asking.
No, it wasn't.
When did we pass the
He's asking the
ordinance for
original sidewalk ordinance.
Oh, I don't know.
So the project was stopped by the city in October of 2022. It was released July 19th of this year. So they shut it down. This project would have been completed in December or ready to build December, January of 2022, 2023. So it basically got shut down for a year. And not by anybody's doing. We had some issues in the city that just kind of shut things down.
And what Dr. Whittington is saying may absolutely be correct, by the way. I think what you're getting at is the platting process contemplates the passage of new ordinances. So when you get a preliminary plat, you have 2 years to complete. If you don't complete within 2 years, you can extend it, but then you're subject to whatever has been passed since that 2-year mark. It gives you an incentive to complete it on time. So whatever is passed during that 2 years, you're then subject to that. So it's possible that the sidewalk ordinance was passed between Dr. Whittington's initial preliminary plat acceptance and then the extension. So that is possible. It's also possible that there were some city delays that cost him time. And so while the Planning Commission is not necessarily in a position to make exceptions. They're bound by the ordinances and their recommendations. This body has that authority to sort of take them on a case-by-case basis and make exceptions. I would caution you about doing that loosely, but there are certainly times when that may be appropriate. And that's for this body to decide.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? I think this was the point where we had some individuals that wanted to make comments. And I'm sorry I can't read these names on here. I got Brady's name, Merle, that's right. I should have written that down, Merle.
So my name is Merle Soltis, and I live at 4012 Wilson. I live across the street from the development. And if we could show the pictures that I provided, please. What we've been dealing with is stormwater and silt coming off of them. That's a neighbor's pond. It's a 20-foot deep pond is now full of dirt from water and soil running off the development across the street. That's water coming across Wilson, coming into our yard. That's a sewer manhole. Sewer's running out of it because of all the storm water onto my property, onto John's property, into the Chuckwall River. Again, that's soil, sand that's been deposited on our land. We can't even mow it. John tried to mow it once and his tractor got stuck. He had to hire a wrecker to get it out. Sand from across the street. Sand. And that's on the side of the property where the development is. You can see the water just pulling up and running across the street.
So my understanding from these pictures is the quicker we get sod down and buildings in place, the quicker this stops. Or are you?
Well, I'm just wanting some assurance
right.
from the builder or the city, because we kind of feel like we've been thrown under the bus here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting washed out. Our property value is going down because you can't even do anything with it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's our only concern is, number one, our property be fixed, and number two, that we have some assurance that if this continues, that it will be taken care of. I'll let you show you these pictures. There is a development out on Mockingbird across from Camelot. They were having trouble with stormwater, I suppose.
Hang on to that, Merle. Go ahead.
If you look at the last picture, that's like a big water slide across from our house. And that's the way it is out there at Camelot. It's just a big water slide. It's going to come down that road and right. I mean, houses. What's going to happen? It's going to go across our yard. It's going to be flooded out. I mean, you can tell by the pictures. I don't think y'all would like this in your front yard. Now, the developer did contact me tonight, first time. I said, what do we got to do to fix this? I thought, all we want is our yard fixed, and we want some assurance that this continues. Because all of this is just devaluing our property. We can't do anything with it, can't mow it, the neighbor can't mow his. And the gas company did contact us about an easement. They wanted a 20-foot easement across our property. We denied that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soltis. Mr. Baskin?
I don't have anything to say.
No comments from Mr. Baskin. Any other comments or questions from the council on item number 4P?
Sounds to me like the longer this is held up, the worse this situation's going to get.
Been held up for a while.
I did have one more question for Dr. Whittington. Sure. The engineers on your project, are they assuring you that this is gonna be resolved?
Yes, yes, and the city engineer signed off on it as well. And they said that, and if you go back up there, there's catch basins all the way down that, so it actually stops and slows water down, stops, slows water down, stops, slows water down, much more than it did before. I have a video, if you want to pull that video up, this was pre-construction, you know, when it rained through there. It's just the road is the lowest part, but there, do the pictures. It's going to be under pre-construction pictures.
Was that video where the tin horn stopped up?
Yeah, so that, until that tin horns, the problem is the road's the lowest part of the land, really there. And when the water comes in, it sits on the road. And it's been that way forever. You can cycle through those. That was the engineering company, when they came out to do a preliminary, it was raining, and you can just kind of go through them. And you can see that road was flooded before we started construction. You know, that was in June of 21. So this has been a long-term problem. Just by what's going to be done on that land there is going to greatly decrease that by 50% is what they said. The flow coming off that land will decrease by 50%, or the rate of flow, however quick it comes across. So that was before we even started grading the site out to do pads or anything like that.
It looks like something the city's gonna have to deal with in the near future.
Yeah, and if you'll go to, the post-construction folder, and you'll see what it looks like now. We've got all the roads are in. It's a curb, guttered, underground drainage into a detention pond. And the last rain that came through, it did not seem like it was near as bad as it was. Now, drone pics. So that's the completed site, and the water basically comes along the far side, the east side, drops into some catch basins, and it slows it down and comes through there, goes into a big holding pond, then comes out, then goes under. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. As soon as we can get grass and everything on everything else, it'll even slow it down more. And that's where your silt's coming from, because we just don't have vegetation on it yet. And that's kind of the rush, is to get some vegetation on it before we start freezing.
How recent was that video you showed?
Today. This is today.
No, the video of the water going across the road. When was that?
That was done 6/2001, June of 21.
Okay.
So that was before we even came to the city to apply for the preliminary plat. The engineering folks who just went out there taking pictures. That was Barker Engineering here in town.
Okay. I don't guess we've got any significant rain that we could test this already.
We've had one like 3/4 of an inch. Nothing like we were getting earlier this year. I mean, you know, we got rained on earlier. But it was engineered. We followed the DEQ permits, how they wanted, and engineering reports for putting up the silt fences and how they wanted it done, the sediment basins and all that. It just, you know, it got held up for a very long time, and over that year of held up, you know, you're just going to get rained on, you know. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Schultz.
Is there some way we could get a statement from the developer as maybe a public record that he would fix the problem, and if the problem continues, that he would take care of it? Is there some way we could get a public record of that?
Well,
Is that our liability?
I don't know if that's the city's place to do that, but I did hear him say that it's going to reduce the storm flow by 50%. That's a public record already. So if that doesn't exist, you've got that on public record. And also that he was going to remediate the silt once the silting stops. That's on record as well. So I don't know that that's the city's responsibility. We're kind of in between here as far as that goes.
I got no problem. I don't have control of that 40 acres that drains on that ditch there, which is 60% of the water. I have no control of that. My water, I know, is going to decrease significantly prior to when we started. That's what the engineer said. That's what the city engineer signed off on. He agreed with everything. I can't get flooded before. I mean, I didn't make the water.
Further comments or questions?
Brady Baskin, 4202 Wilson Street. I'm Merle's neighbor. Me and the applicant had a conversation today. I gave him my word I wasn't going to come in here and try and stop him. I'm not here to try and stop you, Dr. Whittington. But I think everybody can see that this has been a freaking fiasco. Okay? And I'm not putting all the blame on Dr. Whittington. And I'm not putting the blame on you guys. But there's a little bit of blame to go around everywhere. And I think it is absurd if after seeing this debacle, because that's what this has become, is a debacle in my opinion, after living there and having to deal with the frustration of my neighbors and what all's happened, that the city doesn't move. And I know we can't go back and fix things, I get that, but we can fix things moving forward. So I would like to propose that moving forward there is some plan put in place when a developer goes and gets the permitting, everything done to start a development, that stuff is checked out. That silt fencing is put up properly and in the proper positions to where it can act accordingly to how it's supposed to be from an engineering standpoint. Okay? And that in the event that something happens like this, I understand Merle's frustration. You know, he was asking Dr. Whittington to publicly state that he would, you know, reclaim their land, and that was what me and Dr. Whittington's discussion today was about. And I felt like you gave me what I wanted, Dr. Whittington, so I got no problem with you, okay? But I just would like to see that moving forward after this project, because I think what Ms. Fuller stated, there is some truth to that on getting things going, but I think that moving forward, we have to make sure that there's something in place for the citizens of Durant when this happens to them when a development goes in. Because when all this happened, there were some people that worked for the city at that point that no longer work for the city, and they made some assurance to me and to the neighbors that certain things would be done before anything could continue, and that never happened. So I just feel like there has to be something put in place. I don't know what it is. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not as smart as everybody else here. I just know that there has to be something changed the way that we're going about doing business. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett.
Thanks, Brady.
Appreciate that.
At this point, I mean, I think we've hashed it out, and in order to expedite this, I move that we approve 4P with the exception of sidewalks, so he can move forward on this project and we can stop the drainage.
I'll second that.
Mr. Mayor, before the vote, I'll remind the council, there's in section 155.044 of the ordinances, a final plat can be addressed at 2 times. And one of them is when the process is complete, when the development is complete and everything is done. I think you heard staff say that there are some things that are almost done but not quite done. And a final plat approval is appropriate at that time as well. But under our ordinance, if the council is going to approve the final plat before everything is done, there's a bond that's required to be posted, a surety bond to be posted. And as those items get checked off, whether it's water hookups, sewer hookups, street completion, whatever all the other things are, portions of that surety bond can be released. So if this is not a completely built project at this time, there's a bond that's required to be posted according to the ordinance.
And that bond is taken out by who, us or them?
What's that?
Is the bond taken out by the city or
by the developer? The developer has to post a bond, and then as those matters are checked off and completed, then portions of that bond can be released.
And it sounds like the only thing we're lacking is on the city's half of a sewer?
Then I don't know what's lacking.
Street lights.
The city would have to put up the surety
Right,
bond.
in that
They're the
instance.
ones who are waiting to get things done. It's not the developer. I've completed all I can, correct?
The ordinance is profoundly clear. The subdivider elects to deposit the surety bond. The bond is required by the developer if the plat and the development is not completely done in accordance with the terms of the preliminary plat. So regardless of whose fault it is, now the developer has the option to wait for approval of a final plat until everything is complete, if they want to avoid posting the bond. But if the approval is sought prior to the completion of the project, they have 6 months to complete it, and they have to post a bond.
I have a question. Are there instances of other developers posting bonds in favor of the city in this instance? Do we have a history of that?
I have no idea. I mean, if there was a development that was, for which a final plat was sought that wasn't complete, my advice would be the same. They need to post a bond until such things are completed, and they have 6 months from the time of the approval of the final plat with bond to get all of those things done.
Philip, how quickly are we out on completing this sewer tap?
We could probably do it this week.
We have several city staff in attendance of the meeting tonight, and I would ask of all the city staff, do we have knowledge of instances where developers have posted a surety bond in favor of the city for approval of a final plat? Any takers?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why would a developer place a surety bond on the city's work? I mean,
I don't think this is the point that the ordinance was written toward, but I think that's where we find ourselves tonight. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Manager, you act like you were about to say something?
Philip, all we lack at this point is the sewer tap.
On the east side.
On the east side, the west side's
Yeah,
done.
the west side has been completed.
Okay.
Motion and second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
No.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item number 5 is executive session. This will be to consider an executive session to discuss protected information as it pertains to Deborah Mueller and a retirement benefit. And at this time, I make the motion that we enter into executive session.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. We're back in regular session now at 42 minutes after 7. And we're on, we've completed item number 5A. And now we're on to item 5B, which is consider action pursuant to 5A, which has to do with a retirement benefit owed to Deborah Mueller. And I make a motion that the city approve the payment of this retirement benefit to Deborah Mueller.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Item number 6, new business. Is there any new business to come before the council tonight? Hearing none, I move for adjournment.
So I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes, we stand adjourned. At this time, I will call to order a meeting of the Durant City's Utility Authority, and the clerk will call the roll.
Are you over on there? Just 1 second.
And I'm rushing you now, aren't I? Take your time.
Okay. Trustee Miller?
Here.
Trustee Shear?
Here.
Trustee Fuller?
Here.
Vice Chairman Simulescu is absent. Chairman Tucker?
Here. Thank you. Next is the consent items. There is one item under item 1A, consent items. That is the minutes of regular meeting from September the 12th, which are page 4 and 5 of this packet. Have any comments or questions on those minutes? And do I hear a motion to approve the consent item?
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent items. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Item 2, there were none. Item 3, there are none. Item 4, administration under A. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on approving the purchase of parts to repair the UV system at the wastewater treatment plant for $50,965, Mr. Hightower.
Something I know a little bit more about. Yes, our UV system is
not good,
out of date.
Yeah.
This is a sole source request because this is about the only company you can get these parts from. We are going to rebuild that when we do our upgrade, but that upgrade is going to start maybe next year. And since we are under consent order with the EQ, we need these now.
Those companies out of Oklahoma City?
Yes, sir.
I wonder if they have these, or are they going to have to build them? Or
They will be there'll be a lead time on it. I'm not sure exactly how far out we are, but it's a lot closer than next January bidding on a project.
And this will get us part way toward not being in such bad position with the.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Philip on the UV lighting at the wastewater treatment plant?
I make the motion, we approve purchasing the parts. That cost $50,965.
Second. We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Next is item 4B, discussion, consideration, and possible action on accepting a quote from Custom Manufacturing for 5 open-top 20-yard roll-off containers for $64,500.24.
Yes, and also for some closed top.
Oh, and 5.
Yeah, that's 5 and 5.
5 open and 5 closed.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
We have several that are in pretty bad shape we need to replace out at the landfill. Custom Manufacturing was the cheapest.
The bids are all in the packet.
Bids are all in the packet. We do have 3 bids, 2 companies here in town, and then Custom Manufacturing from Oklahoma.
Have we bought
and
from
this
Custom before?
No,
No.
but this is delivered also.
Got
This
it.
price includes delivery. So,
Questions or comments on the roll-offs?
Are these for like city use, or are these ones we rent out?
we rent them out.
Okay.
The closed top ones usually go to like your fast food restaurants, your restaurants, so they can put the food in and close them, so critters and other
But
things.
we make money back off of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I will give you a little update on our sale out at the landfill.
I heard it was done.
It is complete.
That's awesome.
The testing has been sent to DEQ. They need financial reports up at DEQ before they'll sign off on them.
We got
So
one right here.
they'll be sent to them tomorrow probably, or the next day, and we should be looking at opening real soon.
Good news. Questions or comments on the roll-off? I'll make a motion that we approve this purchase order, this contract to purchase these roll-offs, the open and the closed top.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Shear?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Tucker?
Yes. Next is consider approval of an amended water purchase contract between the Durant Utilities Authority and the Rural Water and Sewer District Number 5, which is 2023-70. This one's been a long time coming. We're happy to see this.
Mayor and council, Mr. Chairman and members, this has been a long time coming. This has been, we sell a lot of water to Rural 5, and our previous contract expired, and there's been a lot of back and forth, really probably for a couple years now, on locking down some terms for a long-term contract. The only change to this contract that from the terms we've been talking about is for various reasons, Rural Water 5 needed a 33-year contract. And so that's what I'm recommending, is that the authority approve the 33-year contract. The purchase price by the water district, Rural Water District, goes up quite a bit, and according to staff, that covers our cost of water production, and then some. And then there's a built-in increase rather than the authority having to come back periodically and vote on an increase. There is a built-in 2% increase to the Rural Water District. There's daily gallons limitations in there, and those were in there before, and there were some modifications to those. But this provides a revenue stream for the city. It also provides some reliable numbers and long-term reliability for the Rural Water District.
And we also cleaned up the industrial part.
That's right.
It was real confusing for billing, for the ladies down in billing. And it's a straight rate now.
The Rural Water District operates even within the city limits of Durant, both Rural 2 and Rural 5, and for various reasons, when they go out to commit water to building projects, or when they get loans from USDA, it's necessary for those building projects and for those the lenders to ensure that there is a source of water for them for a long time. And so that's why this is a longer contract than what you would normally see the authority enter into.
That seems reasonable.
And also, I want to thank Philip for all his work on this to help get this completed.
Any comments or questions on the water contract?
And they do collect for the sewer portion of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's one of my big concerns, man. I want my money.
Yes, they collect, and I think we give like a 10%
I got you.
profit for them for collecting for us.
While you're up here, do we need to talk about 4D separately from 4C? It's kind of a codicil to the contract, but
I think that's the industrial part, isn't
Right.
it? Yes.
right.
Yeah, there's two separate contracts. One, they most of the water they buy, frankly, is
Right.
for residential use, but then there's a separate contract that is for industrial use. There's probably some room for consolidation now because
Sure.
the rates
They're
are
the same.
similar.
Right.
They used to be different. But the rates are the same now, but we just went ahead and sort of revamped the previous industrial contract and the residential contract. So that's why there's two separate agenda
And they
items.
use a small amount of water
Small
for
amount.
industrial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on either one of those contracts?
I make a motion to approve 4C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. I move that we approve item number 4D, which has to do with the industrial part of this water contract between the city and Rural 5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item number 5, new business. Is there any new business to come before the Utilities Authority tonight? Hearing none, I move for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the City Utilities Authority meeting. Clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Stand adjourned. At this time, I will call to order a meeting of the Durant Airport Authority. And the clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller,
Here.
Vice Chairman Simulescu is absent. Chairman Tucker.
Here. Item 1 under the order of business, consent items 1A is to consider approval of minutes of a regular meeting on September the 12th of this year, which is attached to your packet, pages 3 and 4. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, I move that we approve the consent items, item 1A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, there are no items under the remaining agenda items. Is there any new business to come before the Airport Authority tonight? Hearing none, I'll move for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, we stand adjourned. At this time, I'll call to order a meeting of the Durant Development Authority. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller,
Here.
Vice Chairman Simulescu is absent. Chairman Tucker.
Here. Item 1 under order of business consent items is 1A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes from July the 11th of this year, which are attached to your packet at pages 3 and 4. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, move for approval of item 1A under the consent items for the approval of the regular meeting minutes of July the 11th.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. There are no other items on the agenda. Is there any new business to come before the Development Authority tonight? Hearing none, I move for adjournment of the Durant Development Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, we stand adjourned. And thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight. Appreciate it.